Hello there, I am Franklin Rivera and I'm going to talk about some learning factors that affect the learning process. So, those factors are very important to know by learners because it helps them to know what factors are involved when learning a language. How can we manage some things like autonomy, like time, like communication with partners, and also it is very essential for teachers since if we as teachers know what factors are involved in a classroom, we can manage some things like the different ages, the different needs of the students, the different customs that they have, and also we can help them to develop a very good uh, understanding of English. Let's start with the age factor. This factor is something that becomes a problem for teachers since when they have students from different ages, they get lost to the activities or with the information that they transmit because they receive the information and they realize the activities in a different way. For example, if we talk about children, they love playing. They basically love playing, discover. They love discovering things. They love do puzzle-like activities, and they like to create things, use the imagination. Different from the teenagers that they are not likely to play as children. Sometimes they like, but not all the time. Sometimes they get lost with it. Another thing that happens with the children is that they are very good imitating the pronunciation of the teacher, the intonation, also the way in which it pronounced the words. So it is helpful because we can help them to develop a very good pronunciation. But if we do not pronounce the words in a good way, they will learn it wrong. So it is important that we have a good pronunciation with when talking with the children. Also, it is important to select the vocabulary that we use because they can learn vocabulary that it is not good use. Something that happens with teenagers sometimes is that they get bored with the activities that we propose, or maybe they feel that the activities that we are carrying on don't have any sense or relevance. So it is important to take into account that we should select activities that make sense to the teenagers students. And in the case of adults, they simply get embarrassed or feel embarrassed when, especially when they are talking and they have younger people that knows English. So it is important to help them to support them in this process. Um, Something positive about adults is that they have a lot of experience. So since they have a lot of experience, we can talk about a lot of topics. It will be very helpful. It will very uh, good for teachers to talk about a lot of topics and to relate those topics into the classes of English. Something that sometimes becomes difficult is that they are very critical with with the teaching process that we have, with the methodologies that we use, and since they have to work, they have um, many responsibilities. They tend to miss lessons. So it is important to uh, keep into mind that. Generally, talking generally about all the ages, it is important to keep into account that we um, should manage different times of the activities. All of them need different amount of time to do activities. They get bored easily. Some of them get bored easily, while other um, like some activities. So it is important to uh, think that they are different, that they have different cognitive skills, and that they like different things. People is different. It doesn't matter if they are from the same nationality, if they have the same educational backgrounds. They are different. So for this reason, it is essential that we focus on the differences and we adapt the information that we transmit and the way in which we transmit the information, because those educational backgrounds, those culture backgrounds can help us to see which is the correct way to transmit the information and how it is better. Also, some differences are taking place. For example, some students like and work alone better, but others need to work in groups. So it is important that we think which is the best way to work, or what activities should we propose, always in groups or always alone or mixing them. We have the answer in our minds, but it's important to uh, focus on the differences that the students have and the wishes that the students have, because sometimes they feel not comfortable. For example, in the case of the extrovert people, they like to participate, but the introvert people simply cannot participate as well as the extrovert people. So we should also understand that, and sometimes we should not like force the introvert people to keep participating a lot, but help them to feel comfortable to talk with the partners and to communicate with among them. Also, in the case of preparing our material to give the class, we should think about um, how are the students, are they visual or kinesthetic or even logical, or which is the characteristic of the learner. So if we think about the intelligences, the multiple intelligences that they have developed, we can propose a good class activity, a good class material, and get there concentrated in the class, that they feel that the class is interesting for them. What about the motivation? It is a factor that for a lot of students it is difficult to manage, since a lot of them start very motivated, but then they lost the motivation. So it is important that we as teachers uh, give information that help them to uh, improve motivation, and also that we as teachers also help them to feel motivated as well as possible. For example, if students feel self-esteem, good self-esteem, this factor will help to achieve goals. So we can help them to improve pronunciation, for example, and the student will feel comfortable when talking in public, it because he or she will pronounce in a correct way. So it will help them to improve their self-esteem. Also, we have to bear in mind that the support of family is essential, especially for teenagers. So we can uh, take into account that if the family help them to feel that they are improving, that the language that they are learning is important, well, they will feel more motivated. Also, You have to remember that motivation creates a decision to act. So when a person is not motivated, uh, she or he basically will not do the activities or the homeworks or the tasks in the better way, because he's just doing the things because he's told to do that. Also, in order to achieve goals, we have to remember the goals to the students. For example, if we put a goal that is learn English to communicate with an stranger, with foreign persons, so we should remind that to them. Also, if they want to travel to other countries, so we should remind that to them. Finally, we can talk about the extrinsic motivation, that is a factor, a bad factor, a factor that occurs to majority of students in public schools in our country is, and that factor is that they learn English just because they want to pass an exam or because they want good grades, but they do not feel motivated to learn English. They learn just the information that they need in the moment, but they are not really learning English. So in the other way, it is the intrinsic motivation, that is the feeling that moves them to learn, to study, to keep improving the English skills. And that is the feeling that we should help to the students to improve and to manage in their learning process. There is another factor, that is the levels. It is essential that we have levels to know in which course a student should be, because if a student, for example, is starting to learn English but it enters into a course of intermediate English level, so it will get lost. um, Surely it will feel that learning English is impossible, that it is very difficult, that he or she will not succeeds in this process. But if it enters into a course that is for his or her level, it will feel that the process of learning English is very good. For this reason, we have the Common European Framework of References that um, propose six basic levels, that are A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. In the A1 level, we have the beginner people, that is the people that mm, knows a little bit of English and can express or introduce um, himself, for example, uh, saying her or his name and basic information. If we um, if we advance in the information in the levels, we can get, for example, the C1 level, that is when a person speaks spontaneously, that speaks with a very good pronunciation, with grammar correctly, and those aspects of the language that are necessary to achieve. But those levels have some problems. For example, if we read the descriptions of those levels, um, all of them say can do. The person can do something, can, for example, can speak fluently, but there is a problem here, is that the very beginning level have no an achievement of it, because many of them of the beginning level, they cannot do things, but they can recognize things. So for this reason, these description change a little bit from the beginner level, and there are some steps in which you can recognize and you can talk about some things that you recognize, for example, numbers or um, uh, names or animals, things like that. There is another issue. There is the difference between former and false beginner. Basically, former are the people that do not knows nothing about English. Basically, they start from zero, and the false beginners know something. They recognize some things, but they cannot talk or express something. So they are the false beginners. And also, a point that should be highlighted here is that um, the amount of time is from 90 to 120 hours to develop a new level of English. Now let's talk about the last factor, and it is basically the learner autonomy. Something that is difficult for some learners to develop, since some people are capable to being autonomous and others are not. It is basically because they are used to work, um, having someone that help them to remember what they have to do, in what time they have to do that, what exercises they have to make. So for some people, it becomes a difficult task. So we can help them in a basic way. For example, we can encourage them to help each other. If we encourage students to help each other, it can be helpful because they can practice with between them. They can like feel motivated to learn things and transmit it to the partners. Also, we can suggest them to talk alone. That is something that help them to have practice and to develop speaking skills. Also, we can transmit it the idea of listening to music. Also, we can share with them interesting songs uh, with their scripts to with the lyrics to help them to um, improve those listening skills and also pronunciation skills. And we can uh, show them some social media and games that are useful to learn English. There are the educational games. There are some social media that can be changed to English, not in Spanish, but we can be changed to English in which they can find some people. For example, in my case, it has been very useful. Hello Talk, uh, an app that help me to interact with people from other parts of the world basically, and that help us to communicate with others, and at the same time we are learning English and we are practicing it. It is very helpful, so we can encourage them to use the technology, since now every person use technology to many things, but we can uh, use technology to learn English and to practice it basically. So we can encourage them to use technology and show them the best ways to do that. Finally, let's talk about some ideas that I got. Example, in terms of motivation, it is very important that we remind the students to be disciplined. Sometimes we do not have motivation to study. Sometimes we feel that we are not improving in our process of learning a language that is English, but we can help them to remember that if we are missing motivation, we can remain in discipline and keep studying and keep improving. Also, we can encourage students to use technology in the better way, that is to use the tools that technology have to improve our autonomy and our learning process, and not just in the class, in the classroom with the partners, but also by ourselves, learning and improving our language skills. And finally, it is important that every teacher recognize the way in which the students learn, the way in which students process information, and adapt it to them, adapt to the circumstances of the students, to the culture and educational backgrounds, to help them have a good learning process and love the language basically.